He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on TABtouch.
Hey, Luke!
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff!
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch! You got the touch, you got the power. Got the touch? Choose TABtouch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Goes up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4-on-2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner.
We missed out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle. We're 2 rounds down in the NBL season already, Cody, and I think we're starting to see some teams stand out at both ends of the table. The Illawarra Hawks, to me right now, are the best team in the competition. New Zealand Breakers are playing great, and now all of a sudden we don't see them for the next 3 weeks. Yep. I think it's fair to say that Jack Jumpers and Melbourne United are happy to see the end of each other for
quite a while.
For a little while. We're only going to round 3, but I think it's fair to say the 36ers, the Phoenix and the Bullets are pretty much in must-win territory coming into this weekend as well. They're trying to get some big guns to fire, and they need them to fire as well, and figuring out some of their best lineups. We've got a full round of action to look forward to, a lot to dissect for us once again. I'm Chris Pike, but once again, I'm joined by the former Sydney Kings and Illawarra Hawks forward, the Warwick Senators Championship captain, Cody Ellis. For joining me, Cody.
Mate, good to be back again. And look, like you said, a few winless teams that are in desperate need, even this early in the season. And it's good to see a couple teams standing out that we didn't really think would this early in the season. So, look, lots going on. Just heading into round 3, which is always fun. Now,
before we get onto that, I want to pay our respects to Dikembe Mutombo, who passed away within the last 24 or 48 hours. He was always one of my favourites to watch going back to the 90s. And for anyone that didn't grow up in that era, anytime you now see the big finger swipe after a block shot, he was the one that invented that. He was one of the great NBA shot blockers of all time. One of the great stories for the background he came from to end up becoming the superstar that he did. Unfortunately, that he passed away recently, but I thought I would bring out my Denver Nuggets jersey of his as well for the occasion, and I'm sure you have some memories of watching him too.
Oh yeah, it was always one of my favourites to watch on the defensive end. He kind of made watching the defensive end of the floor fun to do because just his presence, and you're right, the finger wag is something that will continue for a long, long time, I'm sure. And yeah, look, obviously sad to see him pass away. But just with him, it wasn't just everything he did on the court; it was all the stuff off the court that he did that was super impactful for lots and lots of people. So he will be sorely missed.
Yes, absolutely. So our respects to him. Let's get on to what we've been seeing in the NBL. Before we get on to the round 2 results, Cody, the first 2 weeks, it seems like it's that Sunday game where we're on Channel 10 and they pick out a player to put the microphone on. It was a lot of fun in round 1 watching and listening to Montrezl Harrell with the microphone, and especially the interaction with the referee. Once he was told to not interact with the crowd, I think we got that enhanced because he was wearing the microphone, which was fun. Then we saw Cam Oliver on this Sunday wearing it for the Kings against the Hawks. He had a horrible first quarter. He lost his head a little bit, and it was fascinating afterwards. Brian Goorjian felt that he was trying to actually put on a bit more of a show because he had the microphone on. He actually really felt that he wasn't being himself because he was wearing the microphone, and as a result, I don't think we'll be seeing a Sydney Kings player wearing a microphone anytime soon. I don't think Gorge was at all happy when he found out that that was happening. What are your thoughts on players wearing a microphone?
Oh, look, I think it's a good thing. It kind of gets that extra bit of insight for the fans, and all the little clips that they can pull from it is a lot of fun. Obviously, they're going to have to pick and choose what they pull because a lot of it is not PG. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, look, if that's something that is going to distract you from the game and you try to put on too much of a show with it, then you shouldn't have had it in the first place. But No, look, I'm not sure if it was that distracted Oliver or if it was days that distracted Oliver more so, because those two were going at it a lot.
Yeah.
And to be able to pick up some of those little snippets was fun to listen to. So, but yeah, you're right. I don't think we'll see a Kings player in a microphone again anytime soon. No. But I do like it. I think it's good, and if they can keep it going and keep getting us little snippets of what happens on the court, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm glad you mentioned Darius Days, because if I had to nominate the next player I want to see wearing that microphone, it's got to be him.
Yeah, I think so. I wish they were both wearing it on Sunday, because that would have been fun to listen to.
Okay, so round 2, let's go through the results and then we'll start breaking down some of what we saw. So it started with the throwdown back on last Thursday night. Melbourne United 96-84 against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and then Illawarra Hawks, they keep putting up a lot of points. They're exciting to watch. 113 winners over the Brisbane Bullets, 101, and then it was a thriller. It was not always pretty, but sometimes a close game is a good game. Yep. Sydney Kings 88-87 over the Perth Wildcats. Cairns Taipans, important win for them, 101-97 in their home opener, and then yet another championship rematch between the Jack Jumpers and Melbourne United, and it was Tasmania 81-72. And then on Sunday, as we just touched on, Illawarra Hawks 96-89 over the Sydney Kings, and then the New Zealand Breakers 81-79 over the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. I want to start with the championship rematch again, Cody. These two teams now, I think thankfully for them, and maybe everybody, they don't play each other until 2 days before Christmas, because the last 7 games now that the Jack Jumpers have played in the NBL have all been against Melbourne United. So I think they need to take a break from each other. The frustration between them, I think, has spilled over because they are now so familiar with each other. So they know each other's tricks, and especially some of the stuff we saw with Illy and Daly and Chris Golding up against Drimmick and Crawford and Doyle. There's a lot going on. So I think they're happy to see the back of each other. What do you make of this one? Because there were times where it really did threaten to spill over.
Yeah, it did, and it was very much a heavyweight bout from the get-go. Very physical, very tense. The whole game was very much like that, and I think again, it's a very tough one to ref because of everything going into it, and obviously unveiling your banner in front of the team you beat is almost rubbing salt into the wound. Yep. So, which I thought was interesting, but it got out of hand. It did get out of hand, and I think nearly every time the camera panned away, something else happened behind the camera, and there was just constantly little fights happening here and there, and it got really scrappy. It got very, very scrappy, but again, like you said, it's definitely because they've seen each other so many times so recently. So it's good that we don't see them again, face each other again till, December? Yeah. But they're probably both very relieved that they don't have to do that, which is good. So lots going on, but kind of glad that it's done with for the time being.
Yeah, and it just gives time for it to feel fresh again when they do play each other. I wanted to bring up the banner as well, because Scott Roth was really uncomfortable about the fact that they had their banner night on the same night they were playing Melbourne United. Yeah. There's nothing they can do about it because they get given the schedule they're given, and it just happened to be their first home game was against Melbourne. But interesting, afterwards, he said that where he comes from, this would never happen. We'd never do it against a team that we just beaten, and he felt so uncomfortable that he didn't come out and be part of the celebration. It wasn't because he was too good for it or he was being disrespectful. It was the opposite. Scott just simply didn't feel comfortable doing it in front of Melbourne. What are your thoughts? I mean, should have the NBL found a way to not have their home opener against Melbourne, or how would have you felt being in Tasmania's shoes? Would have you been a little bit reluctant to celebrate too much?
Yeah, and I think that, like I just mentioned, to have the banner unveiled in front of the team you beat is, you're right, I think that is slightly disrespectful, and it is. It's rubbing salt into the wound. It's something that I'm sure the NBL thought was a good idea to make this one, kind of the game of the round and make some extra feeling into it. And yeah, look, as a player, I think it would have been a little awkward to do as well. And obviously, if you're in Melbourne's shoes, it's pretty crazy and pretty wild.
It's also the second time Melbourne have copped it because they had to do it when they lost the grand final series to Perth.
Yep.
The Wildcats unveiled their banner against Melbourne at the start of the next season too.
Yeah, it kind of makes it more about the other team as well than celebrating the championship.
It really rubs it in, doesn't it?
It does. So I don't think it's good, and I think that needs to change. And it's not a difficult change. So it something needs to happen with that because it just can't happen.
Do you remember who you unveiled your banner against at the start of the next season at the Senators?
Cannot remember.
It
wasn't Perry Wakes.
No,
it wasn't. I can't remember.
I want to get your thoughts on Will Magnay because he struggled in the first game when it was in Perth, and I thought Marcus Lee had the better of that matchup. Fair to say, Will got his revenge. Some of those blocks, especially the one where he threw it right back in Marcus Lee's face.
Yeah,
I think they actually like each other, but once the game is happening, it changes very quickly, and that competitive instinct takes over. But Will Magnay was the difference in this game. I mean, 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks. That's why he became an Olympian. He had a huge, huge impact.
He was awesome. He was great, and he's a different beast when it's at home, in front of the home crowd. He's a completely different player, and some players are very much like that. Yeah. I think if he can figure out how to do that kind of a thing on the road consistently, because we're going to get it when they're in Tassie. So if he can figure out how to do that on the road consistently, he's going to be driving force for this Tassie
He enjoys that interaction with the home crowd, doesn't he?
Yeah,
I'm not sure he likes the crowd against him as much.
Yeah, not so much. But again, he's young, so that's something that will evolve in his game for sure. He was awesome. Some of those blocks were massive, like you said. I think the one you mentioned where Delhi threw it behind his head to Marcus Lee in transition, I was like, oh, that's a really nice play.
Yes, it was.
And then Magnay standing still. Like, no run up, just stand still, jump, vertical, just sent it packing. And I think Tassie went down and hit a 3. Jordan Crawford hit a 3 after that. And that turned the tide of the game. Yeah. That was where the game was won, I feel. Because that was kind of, I think it was mid or early fourth when it was still teetering between who's going to pull away. And that's where Tassie pulled away. I think that play was huge. I mean, his 4 other blocks were all super timely and just big plays as well. But he's such a difference maker for that team.
Absolutely. It's actually nice seeing a big guy being able to play defense as well.
It's awesome.
He didn't get in foul trouble, which was really relieving to see.
No, it was good. It was good. So hopefully we can see more of that this season.
Illawarra Hawks, they're now undefeated, and there's a lot to like about their way they're playing. We both had them in our top, at least our top 6 coming into the season, but I feel like I definitely underestimated them because right now it's only round 2, and you don't win championships in October, obviously, but clearly they are the best team playing right now. And they deserve a lot of credit for keeping the same group together. I mean, they brought everybody back. The only 2 they swapped is the point guard spot, Trey Kell for Justin Robinson, and clearly that's an upgrade in every way you can look at it. And Darius Days for Gary Clark. I mean, you wouldn't say it's an upgrade because of how good Gary is, but it's at least breaking even right now as well. So they've got better from last year. They're playing at a high pace, almost 104 points a game now over the first 3 games. So they're scoring at will. They've got, I think, the best defender in the league over the first 2 rounds. Wani Swaka-Lobaluk again was fantastic. He shut down Keandre Cook in the second half of that game against Brisbane, kept him to 2 points in the entire second half, and then his job on Jaylen Adams on Sunday was the best job I think we've ever seen on Jaylen Adams. So, and he's also scoring. I think he had 26 points over the 2 games that round as well. So he's not a liability the other way. Is it unfair to say the Hawks are the championship favourites right now?
Look, very early days, obviously. Very early days. And look, obviously come against the Kings that are probably title favourites, we would think, coming into the season. And again, that's always an arm wrestle when those 2 teams play, when the Kings and the Hawks play. No matter what teams are on the floor, it doesn't matter how good or how bad one of the teams are, those games are always close. So that was a fun one to watch. But look, right now they're playing better than anyone. I think defensively they're really getting after it. Obviously, head of the snake being Wani, and it's awesome to see and so fun to watch him and how he's evolved just this off-season. I think there were some question marks around his offensive game, like you said, and he's obviously gone away and worked hard on it because his shot's looking really good, and he's shooting it with confidence, and if he can keep that up, then he's going to be one of the best two-way players in the game. And look, the Hawks look unreal. I think the addition of Kell has been awesome for a guy like Tyler Harvey. Just the ability to have the ball out of his hands and him being able to come off those downs picks and all that kind of thing, and not have to shoot all these wild shots and have to score 30 a night for them to be successful. I still think some of his shot selection can be, a bit questionable at times. But again, I think Tatum is starting to reel that in and let him understand that, the reason they brought in Kell and the reason they brought in, those kinds of guys is to help Tyler still be that Tyler Harvey that we know, but to be able to do it in a more productive way and something that's a little more consistent. So, look, they're fun to watch. They are really fun to watch, and I'm always pulling for them. Obviously a former club, I'm always pulling for them, but they're the standout team for me right now by a long way.
How important is it having that continuity from last year?
Huge.
And having basically the same group just with those two changes?
Yeah, it's huge. And especially when you've got a coach that comes in partway through last year and he has the confidence in the team that was already there, adds a piece or two, but just that confidence that's instilled in the group is huge. And continuity throughout seasons is massive, especially with imports. Tyler signed for 3 years, which I think is huge for them.
At some point, he'll become a citizen in that time too.
Yep, exactly. And then, to bring in a guy that knows the league in Trey Kell, I think that's huge as well. I think that goes a little, underestimated on how important that is, on imports knowing the league and how it's played and how to play in the league. And obviously, Darius Days has come in and been better than we thought straight away. I thought he would take a little bit of time to grow to how he's played so far. And realistically, I think he's probably frustrated that some of his shots aren't going down too, because he's not shooting at the best clip at the moment. I think some of the looks that he's getting are really good. They're just not dropping for him. So he could be better again.
Sure.
And something that I'm sure we'll see him grow throughout the season in that aspect.
The team they beat on Sunday, the Sydney Kings, they're in a very interesting situation. We talked about their plus-minuses after that first game against Adelaide, and it's actually even more now pronounced that we've seen them for 3 games over the season. So what we're seeing is that when Jaylen Adams is on the floor, they're almost unstoppable.
Yeah.
The second he goes off the floor, they're playing horribly right now. And it's hard to point the finger just at the players that are replacing him, because it must have to do with the other matchups.
But for sure.
From a purely numbers point of view, over the first 3 games now, when Jaylen Adams is on the floor, the Kings are plus 29. When Izayah Le'afa is now on the floor, there might be times where this is with Jaylen, so it might be disfigured a little bit, but they're minus 40 with him on the floor, and they're minus 27 with Shaun Bruce on the floor. How surprising is it that they get such a drop-off when we thought their depth was going to be their great strength?
It's a tough one, because Le'afa hasn't been good at all this season, and I think the past couple years I've really liked what he's done for the teams he's been on. I think he's been great. Same thing with Brucey. He's been awesome for the Kings the past few years. I think those 2 guys are only going to get better throughout the season. So that's not an issue. And I think once they kind of settle into their roles a bit better and kind of figure out what Gorge wants them to do, I think that will only turn positive for them. But again, a guy like Jaylen Adams, just the pure gravity that he pulls in is massive. And once he comes off the floor, all of a sudden you can help in off Izayah Le'afa, you can help in off Brucey. So Zave and Cam Oliver and guys like that, even Tui, are seeing the floor shrunken a lot more than what they would have with Jaylen Adams on the floor. So it's a little bit different. And look, Le'afa's going to find his shot. He's a better shooter than what he's shooting right now. Seems to have lost a bit of confidence in that, even just through the first couple games. Brucey's going to do Brucey things, and he's going to hit some big shots this year. I already know, because that's just what he does.
Yes.
And I think that it is tough, but when you've got someone as elite as Adams, it's the same thing with Perth when Bryce comes off the floor.
Sure.
Honestly, it's one of those things that when you've got someone this good, there's going to be a drop off when they come off the floor.
That's exactly why John really doesn't want to ever take Bryce off the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just finding a way to limit the damage when he's off the floor, I guess. And even if Jaylen's not having his best game, like you said, when they played the Hawks, even though he was out there and Wani was doing a really good job on him, the fact that you've got Wani solely focused on Jaylen Adams, he's not focused on his help and all that kind of thing. Sure. So it's more 4-on-4 than anything. So I think that it's not overly surprising. The surprising part is the fact that Le'Arthur and Bruce just haven't been up to standard yet. And like I said, that'll come. I have no doubt in my mind that that'll come.
Yeah, and it's not just those guys either. The entire starting group, so Bull Koala, Alex Tui, Adams, and then Xavier Cooks and Kelly Leia-Pepe, they're all in a positive plus-minus. And then you go to their bench, and even Cam Oliver, but also Jalen Galloway, Kwatnoi, Mulawatch, and then Bruce and Le'Arthur, all negative plus-minus. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen over now a 3-game stretch more of a difference from a team's starting group to their bench.
Yeah, no, and especially a team that, I mean, you look at that bench.
I mean, that could be a starting group on another team.
Yeah, those guys would start in a lot of other clubs. So, yeah, again, it's finding their roles, because especially with a guy like Oliver coming off the bench, I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be coming off the bench. Sure. But I guess the thoughts around it are a bit of scoring punch off the bench as well, and just that bit of energy. But yeah, it's really weird to see. You know, like you said, such a positive with the starters, and then such a negative with the guys coming off the bench. So that'll turn around. Like I said, it's new system under Gorge, lots of new players. They're too good not to turn it around. So it's just a matter of time, I think.
Okay, let's take our first break. We'll hear from TABtouch. We'll get Elvis under control, and then we'll come back and have a look at the winless teams.
Yeah, sounds good.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's basketball hustle. We've got 3 winless teams in the NBL. Cody, we've got the Adelaide 36ers 0-2, the South East Melbourne Phoenix 0-3, the Brisbane Bullets 0-2. At least one of them will get a win on Thursday night when Adelaide hosts the Phoenix. The Bullets have got a big ask at home to the Kings.
They do.
We'll go through each 3 of them in a bit more detail, but which one are you most concerned for right now?
Look, at the moment, it seems to be the Phoenix. I think that they're really struggling to kind of find their identity a little bit and trying to figure out how to get Sobey into the game properly without forcing shots. Derek Walton Jr. trying to get him into the game as well. They just seem a little bit disjointed at the moment. But again, another team that's got, is loaded with talent, but just trying to figure each other out. Again, it's a whole new look team, so it's tough to do, and especially when you've got some studs on the team that are used to having the ball in their hand for majority of the game. So look, they're probably the one that you'd be most concerned about purely because of the talent they have, and probably the losses they've had too. Although Adelaide losing in Cairns is not an ideal loss for them, with Cairns still being undermanned. So, look, Brizzy, you feel sorry for with losing McDaniel for the season to a shoulder. Josh Bannon hasn't been in yet. Nordo going down again on the weekend. Just constantly losing bodies is just got to be just brutal for Shula. So you feel for them. Look, I mean, obviously concerns for all 3 teams, but I think at the moment, Phoenix being 0-3 is pretty, that hurts.
Let's stick with the Phoenix then. Their schedule hasn't helped them.
No,
so they're the one team that was unlucky to have to play an extra away game to Perth for Hoops Fest. Then they play their first home game is basically a neutral game against Melbourne United. Then they play against the Breakers for New Zealand's home opener. And now this Thursday they play in Adelaide for Adelaide's home opener. You never make excuses, but that's about as tough of a draw to start as you can get. Yeah,
it absolutely is. Absolutely is. I can't think of a tougher way to start unless you throw in the Kings in there somewhere in Sydney. It is. It's really tough, and especially when you're trying to find your feet as a team, as a new team, it's tough to do. Coming up against all those teams and on the road constantly. Obviously the neutral in Melbourne.
Yep.
It's never really a home or an away
it's
game, that one. So you feel for them because the schedule hasn't been kind to start the season.
Yeah, so that's one neutral game and then virtually 3 games against a team playing their first home game of the season.
Yeah, which teams are up and about for.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but hopefully it starts to even out a little and they can at least get their first win on the board and start to feel a bit better about themselves and get this thing rolling.
What are you making of the Nathan Sobey, Derek Walton Jr. backcourt? Because Sobey struggled in the first 2 games.
Yep.
He was better against the Breakers. He had 24 points. Yep. But then Derek Walton was pretty good in their first 2 games. And then he was horrible against the Breakers, where he had 2 points, 3 turnovers, went 1 of 7 and fouled out. What do you make of that combination so far?
Yeah, look, it's not working at the moment. It's just straight up not working at the moment. But those 2 elite players that, again, will figure it out. Yep. But they've got to figure it out quick.
Yes.
Sobes in New Zealand was good with his 24, but it was on a lot of shots. Yep. He took a lot of shots to get that.
I think it was 19 shots.
Yeah, so, it was an expensive 24. But at the end of the day, when no one else is firing, he's got to be the guy. Yep. He's got to be the guy. And he's got to find his feet and figure out how to be successful in this team. Because he is the go-to guy. I think, obviously, Walton is an elite point guard, and again, he's going to sort it out. And he had a tough matchup in New Zealand.
Jackson Cartwright was fantastic.
Yeah, Parker Jackson Cartwright just proving why he's an All NBL team player. And again, Walton is also an All NBL team type of a point guard. Yep. So it's something that, while it's not working at the moment, I think Mike Kelly and his staff are certainly doing all they can to figure out how to get them in sync. Because it's not working at the moment.
If they lose on Thursday in Adelaide and they're 0-4, how concerned are you?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. 0-4 to start an NBL season is almost calling it on a season. I mean, it's not, but again, depending on if they do go down, depending on how they go down. It would be warning signs for sure. You never like seeing coaches fired for that kind of a reason, but it's one of those things that it's just the nature of the beast. And if they do go 0-4 and then even drop the week after, then Mike Kelly would, I'm sure, be concerned for his job, which, again, you never want to have looming over your head. So it's a tough situation. And I think a guy like Simon Mitchell has got a lot on his plate at the moment,
I hope he tuned out for that last minute.
Yeah, I know.
We'll actually get to his votes in our Player of the Year award shortly, so thank you to Simon for still being involved in this show. The team they're playing on Thursday night, the 36ers are 0-2. Now, they play at home for the first time on Thursday. Their defense, they're playing none of it right now. They gave up 101 points to a Taipans team that, in fairness, probably doesn't have the firepower of some other teams that we see around the league. They still scored 97. They still scored enough against the Kings in the first game as well. They still had 94 points in the first game. So they've now given up over 100 in their first 2 games. Is it at the defensive end that their problems mostly sit?
Absolutely. Giving up over 100 every game is not good. You're not going to win any games, especially in a 40-minute game, to give up over 100 points in multiple games or in every single game you've played. It's not going to get it done. You're not going to beat anyone doing that. Because while they have talent and all that kind of thing on the offensive end, they're not going to constantly outscore teams. And it's just not. There's other teams with more firepower than them. So they're not going to be able to just constantly outscore teams. So for them to be successful, they need to be able to stop teams, and they're certainly not doing that. No.
What's going on with Isaac Humphries? That's 2 games now where he's been really had really rough nights. 3 points, 1 of 5, 3 rebounds, only played 18 minutes. What's going on?
I'm not sure if he's kind of in his own head at the moment or what's going on, or if he feels he's being done by or something by coaching staff or what. It's really interesting because he's an absolute beast and can be in this league. And we saw it multiple times last year with him and DJ and how, how potent they can be as a duo. Yeah. I think...
I don't know if they've had one single play of them running a pick and roll together this whole season so far.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I feel every time Isaac's got the ball is just kind of off a random post up and just everyone staring and watching him go to work.
Yeah.
Everyone's sinking in on him, and then he gets frustrated and either turns it over, puts up a bad shot, or has to kick it out. Yeah. And that's got to be frustrating because, I mean, he's such a mobile big that he's so much more successful in that pick and roll, like you mentioned. You know, that pick and roll with DJ and, you know, slash into the basket off drives and that kind of a thing. He's not your traditional like post up big. He's got those moves for sure, but it's not just throw it into the post every single time and let him go to work. So they've got to figure it out because I think he's being extremely underutilized.
If he's unhappy, when Jarrell Martin is healthy, do you try to figure out a way where maybe you let him go if he's not happy? And you bring in Jarrell Martin and keep Montrezl Harrell as your combination.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. That'd be pretty wild if that was something that they did. But yeah, look, if that's something that Isaac wanted, then you'd probably look at doing that.
Well, you can't do that if you fire him. So the rules say that you can't bring in a replacement if you fire a guy. But if he asks for his release, it might be if it's a mutual decision, that might be different.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure there's I'm sure there's ways around that too. I'm sure that they can talk him into that a little bit if they really wanted. But
by the time Martin's healthy, we'll know, won't we?
Yeah.
So if Isaac keeps playing like this for the next 4 weeks, we'll know if you want him to stick around or not.
Oh, for sure, absolutely will. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks. And look, I'm hoping he can find his feet because he's proven that he's a game changer for that club. And he was last year in multiple games. He was the reason they won lots of games.
It absolutely was, yeah.
You know, the combo of him and DJ was lethal and almost unstoppable. So they've got to figure it out quick, though.
The interesting part is I'm not sure you can necessarily play him a lot alongside Montrezl Harrell. And right now, Montrezl looks unstoppable at times. He did against Cairns. He didn't play a lot again, but what he did play was pretty impactful. You know, I mean, he finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, but he only played 21 and a half minutes. They need to find a way to play him more as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think they need to because, I mean, he's just too big and strong for pretty much anyone in the league at the moment. And, again, an excitement machine.
Oh, some of those dunks. I mean, it's lucky the backboards didn't come down.
Oh, he's gonna shatter one. There's gonna be a broken backboard before he leaves, I reckon, because he's a big unit and he throws it down with some authority. So yeah, look, I'm surprised, and look, I'm sure he's on minutes restrictions because of the past kind of year and him being injured and that kind of a thing. So I'm hoping we do see more minutes out of him, but I think in turn that will take minutes off Isaac as well.
The Wollongong backboard has to be the prime candidate.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So looking forward to that one.
The Brisbane Bullets. It's been tough for them to start the season. They were still pretty competitive for the most part against the Hawks. They didn't play horribly like they did the week before. Yeah. But coming into the game without Sam McDaniel, who is now out for the entire season, he's almost their hardest player to replace because he's one of the best defenders in the league, but also the most versatile defender. So in that game against the Hawks, he would have been the matchup for Trey Kell. So he would have been able to at least somewhat limit the impact that Trey Kell had on that game. But he can also defend anyone from a 2, a 3, or a 4. Yep. And he's also enough of a threat where you have to watch him offensively. So he's really tough to replace. And like you said, they also haven't had Josh Bannon yet this season. And then in that game against the Hawks, the game turned towards the Bullets when Mitch Norton started to have an impact, but then he hurt his groin and he wasn't able to play a lot in the second half. Dengadell also hurt his groin, and he's a good offensive weapon for them. We'll get to the imports later, but just on that, personnel-wise, it's just tough when those most important players, you can't get them on the floor.
Yeah, you feel for them, you know, and I always say that, you know, luck plays a big part in an NBL season or just in any season, really, and injuries are part of that luck, and obviously losing McDaniel for the whole season is brutal, and not seeing Josh Bannon yet. Again, another piece that really came into his own at the end of last season and kind of figured it out and became that kind of small version of Nick Kay, you know, just the way he plays. And look, losing Nordo, I think, especially without having McDaniel in there, losing Nordo is just, I mean, you can't really replace that. You know, I think, like you said, he came in and he turned the game on its head and just with all the little things he does.
Well, Norton and McDaniel are their captain and vice captain.
Yeah.
Says it all.
It really does. And then Dangadell, who I feel like is starting to looked good so far. Yeah. I think it's not right. And at that point, you need everyone else to step up, and you need your imports to come in and be imports and carry the team, basically. But they're certainly not doing that by any stretch of the imagination.
No, we did talk about this Bullets team, and we felt like to be a good team, they needed their imports to all be outstanding. I think they've got enough out of Keandre Cook to suggest that he'll be okay as a scorer. But I feel like their local talent, just on paper, they basically swapped Aaron Baines and Nathan Sobey for 2 role players with Jared Bairstow and Towie Smith-Milner. So that meant there was extra pressure on the imports to be very good. Against the Hawks, Casey Prather took a lot of shots, 3 of 13, 8 points. He was starting. Unfortunately, he just doesn't look like he's the same athlete that he once was. Yeah. James Bateman, we talked about him last week. He came in talking about how good defensively he was going to be. We haven't seen any of that. No. And then offensively, he doesn't look proficient enough with the ball in his hands to even run an offense. So he had 5 points, 2 turnovers, and only 2 of 6 shooting. And again, they had a horrible start. He came out of the game. Mitch Norton came in, and the Bullets were able to steady. They needed 3 superstar imports. Out of the 3 so far, you give 1 a pass and not much more than that, and the other 2 much less than a pass. Yeah,
it's a frustrating situation for them. And you're right, they just didn't recruit well, unfortunately. And again, that happens. But when you lose a guy like Baines and Sobey, you can't replace them with a Bairstow and a Smith-Milner. That's 2 role players that just haven't played in the past couple of years. Might get a couple of minutes here and there, but if you had
they almost play the exact same role too, don't they?
Yeah,
they're almost the same sort of player.
Pretty similar. Smith-Milner's obviously a shooter. He can stretch the ball for sure. Bairstow's more on the glass, but that's about it. I don't know. It's a frustrating one. It's got to be frustrating for the players too. It's a team that, again, if you had everyone available, that would be able to contend with teams, but not when you've got all these injuries. And then, the imports just are not up to scratch. That's probably the nicest way I can put it.
I don't think there's an option in terms of Casey. I think Casey will stick around for the entire season. And in fairness, his wife does a terrific job when she has a microphone in her hands, so she's a valuable member of the NBL community now as well. But how much more time does James Bateman have?
If they lose again this weekend, which they come up against the Kings, I think, right?
He has to do the job on Jaylen Adams.
I can't see him being here too much longer. Unless he completely locks up Adams, comes out and has 30, they'd have to move on from him. Because they have to start filling that void of the Nordo and the McDaniel. They have to fill that kind of a void too, and he's not it, unfortunately. So, he's got to really turn it around pretty quickly if they're going to keep him around.
Do they also have to find a local to replace Sam McDaniel? Do they have to find somebody to play a similar role somehow, pretty quickly?
Somehow, yeah. I think so. I don't know where you find someone like that.
Well, one player that sprang to mind, you played against him, Johnny Narkle. Could he fill some sort of a role?
Look, I defensively, I don't think he's on the same level by any stretch of the imagination. Probably a bit more talented offensively, for sure. But yeah, good size, similar size.
Similar size, yeah.
Not as strong. No. Not as strong. But look, I think they do need to find someone. And look, in terms of local talent around, I think Johnny's probably about as good as anyone.
At the same time, how hard would it be for him to do it mid-season? He wouldn't even have a pre-season preparation.
No. But I mean, look, he's one of those players that is always in shape and always ready to go. So, honestly, they need to be making a call somewhere along the line.
Would you take the call?
Hurry up. I'm not quite the Sam McDaniel type. Okay. I'm also 34, so... But I wouldn't say no to it, I'm sure.
Well, there you go. I'll float your name to Justin Schuller. Out of those 3 teams, before we wrap up this segment, Cody, which one of them has a chance to still turn it around and be at least a finals contender? Which one do you think it's already too late for?
It's tough because I still have a bit of faith in the Phoenix team. I think that at the moment, Brizzy's just got too many pieces missing, like too many key pieces. And that's just something that they've got to deal with, unfortunately. Adelaide, who knows? They're at the moment, they kind of seem very much same old Adelaide, unfortunately. And yeah, look,
we're going to learn so much about them when we see them play at home, aren't we?
Very much so.
If they can fire at home, get the crowd behind them, they could build momentum.
Yeah.
If they lose on Thursday, the whole thing could just completely implode.
Yeah, look, I think so. It's a tough one. It really is, because there's just, I don't know. There's so many good pieces in that Adelaide team.
But there's no shortage of talent, that's for sure.
No, exactly. So if they're going to find a way, it's going to be at home. But yeah, look, I do still think the Phoenix have the right pieces as well. You know, I think they're loaded with talent with that Walton and Sobey combo. So if they can figure it out, I think that'll help them turn a corner. Yeah, look, it's pretty scary times for all three teams, really.
All right, let's take another deep breath. Thank you to Elvis for calming down. So we've had some time to concentrate on what we're doing. We'll hear from TABtouch. We'll wrap up the rest of round 2 and then look ahead to round 3, Cody, and also the New Zealand Breakers on their NBA trip.
Sounds good.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on TABtouch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose TABtouch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Last segment for this week, Cody. Plenty to still talk about. We've gone through most of the things that we saw in round 2. Anything we missed? You were at the game on Friday night, the Wildcats and the Kings. What did you make of things from what you saw firsthand?
Yeah, look, Sydney Kings came out super aggressive. They looked really good from the get-go, and the Cats kind of let it blow out really early.
Yes.
Unfortunately. And the Kings almost looked like they were just going to run away with it from the get-go. But, you know, to the Cats' credit, they fought back and did what they do in Perth and figured a way to get some stops and run and get some buckets. So, look, I think Pepper had his welcome to the league moment you know, came out and hit some big shots and kind of really brought them back into the game with his threes. Obviously, we didn't really see Keanu at all, and it was just one of those games where, you know, he wasn't impactful at all in his time, unfortunately. And I doubt we'll see too much of that this season because I think he's gotten too good to have too many games like this now. Tough one for the Cats for sure to have him out.
Well, yeah, I mean, touching on that, we've never seen, I think, a greater contrast from round 1 to week 2. He was the player of the match in that first round, and I think
awesome.
I'm pretty sure he got the 5 votes from Simon Mitchell in our Player of the Year award, and then he only played 10 minutes. Yep. I think he had one point for the game. Yep. John really put him out at the start of the second half to see if he would give him something. He didn't, and he ended up sticking with Jesse Wagstaff, who he had zeros right across the board except plus minus. They were plus 13 when he was on the court. So Jesse had an impact. Dylan Windler was really good. Christian Doolittle was pretty good. How do you explain such a difference from one week to the next?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And again, it all comes down to matchups as well.
Yep.
But it was just, you're right. Just the stark contrast was crazy. You know, I don't think I've seen something like that in quite a while with how good one week and just how bad next week. So he's improved too much. He's gotten too good to let this affect him, I think. Yeah. Everyone has down games. It is what it is. So I expect him to come out and be super aggressive this week against a tough Melbourne outfit.
How big of a part in his performance do you think the matchup with Xavier Cooks had?
Oh, look, had a little bit of a bearing on it for sure. But you know, we've seen him go up against Xavier before and hold his own and that kind of a thing. So, like I said, I think this is just a one-off. It'll be a one-off game, and hopefully he can put it in his rear view and keep it there and not look back on it too much. But look, some of the other guys stepped up big time though. You know, Winlow with 16 boards was unbelievable. He just relentless on the O glass as well, and he was huge for him. Hit some big shots as well. Like we said, Pepper was unreal. Hit his 5 threes and probably could have found Bryce on the opposite wing for the game.
Maybe.
But, yeah.
Well, was there time to make the pass?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think you probably could have found him earlier before he took his dribbles up the court. Okay. So I think in that, with the game on the line, you find Bryce regardless, right? Okay. But it is what it is. You know, I think the way they started obviously really hurt them. And again, that comes down to defense. You know, I think they did a good job to end up holding the Kings to 88. Yeah. But if they had have started off defensively the way they played from the second quarter on.
No, you're right. There's only 61 points they scored in the last 3 quarters.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a tough one. And look, again, this was. I expect to see this in a series at the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to that because these are, for me, the two teams that talent-wise are probably the two best in the league.
What do you make of what you saw from the Cairns Taipans? It's amazing what a difference having a point guard can make. Yeah. Kyle Adams was back in the lineup and everyone was able to play in their positions and play their roles. And Rob Edwards was able to benefit. He knocked down 6 threes and had 31 points. Sam Wardenberg was tremendous as well. Kyron Galloway had his big moment there at the end of at the start of the fourth quarter to blow the game open. But it all seemed to change because they had Kyle running the point.
Yeah, and again, it makes a massive difference. And we knew this was going to be something that was going to hurt them early without having point guards in there. So, you know, it's no surprise that once everyone's playing their position that they kind of figured it out a bit. I thought Edwards was elite. Yeah. You know, listening to Derek Rucker kind of compare him to really the two guards they lost last year, kind of rolled into one. Yep. Kind of that the size and everything is huge for them, and just having that player that can go out and get you 30 like he did, I think is huge. Wardenberg, again, like it was good to see him play his game and come out and be aggressive. And
first time in his NBL career he's had a 20 and 10 double-double.
Yeah. So, which is actually surprising. I think we'll see plenty more of those because, again, he keeps just growing and growing and he's starting to figure out the league and get better. And, yeah, look, I think they were, again, it's kind of a 40 win, that one. I think, you know, just your typical 40 teams and just grind it out, get it done, work hard, just outwork the other team, really. And especially in front of the Cairns fans. Sure. It's always tough to play up there. Yeah. So, look, great win for them. I think it was awesome, especially when you've still got Armstrong out, just kind of proving that Kyle Adnam signing late in the season was massive.
Yeah, for sure. All right, before we finish up on round 2, got some awards. So we've got our awards all lined up for this season again. Cody, let's start with our Player of the Year awards. So these votes will be cast by Simon Mitchell throughout the season. So we'll go through his 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's got Trey Kell, one of his former pupils, with the 5 votes, especially for that performance against Brisbane. Yeah. Rob Edwards, as we just touched on, with his 31 points for the Taipans. Will Magnay for his impact for the Jack Jumpers. Jaylen Adams, who was fantastic against the Wildcats, especially as you saw. And then Parker Jackson-Cartwright at both ends was tremendous for the Breakers against the Phoenix. Are you willing to take him to task on any of those?
Not at all. I think, you know, that's kind of really perfect. I think you could have had Edwards maybe getting all the votes, but the fact that the Hawks beat the Kings, I think, is probably why Kell is above, and rightfully so. Thought Magnay was elite. You're right, Adams was so good against the Cats. And then Parker Jackson-Cartwright with what he did on Walton was awesome, and then just, again, running that Breakers team. So, again, spot on as always.
Damien Martin also with his Best Defensive Player Award votes. And for the second straight week, Guani Swaka Lobaluk with the 3 votes, so he's now a runaway leader. He might win on those 6 votes because it doesn't necessarily need a lot of votes to win this award, as we've seen over the last couple of years. Also, Parker Jackson-Cartwright, that job on Derek Walton was elite. And Will Magnay, I mean, his blocks just spoke for themselves. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think Guani, rightful 3 votes again. And, I'd like to change my Defensive Player of the Year votes to Wani and instead of McDaniel.
Well, I think by default now that McDaniel's out, you're allowed to make that change. Yes.
And then look, like we've already spoken about, the job that Parker Jackson-Cartwright did on Walton, I thought was unreal. Just completely took him out of the game, and that was great. Will Magnay with his elite, defense against Melbourne. obviously Damo knows what he's talking about, so it's always hard to go against him.
The Galen Award, so Matty Knight will be helping us out. If you're in Matty's shoes, I narrowed it down to 3 candidates. So Winey, because he played at both ends in both those wins for the Hawks. Kyle Adnam, for all the reasons we talked about, where his team just looks so much better because he was on the floor. That's kind of what the Galen Award is all about. And Parker Jackson-Cartwright, because he did it at both ends. Yeah. If you had to pick one of those, who would you be taking this week?
Yeah, look, that's a tough one. For me, I think it would be Winey, just purely from the fact of who they beat and what he did to a former MVP, and even just offensively, he was everywhere. But again, that's something that could go to all three of those guys. You know, they all did, you know, everything needed to get wins for their team. So yeah, that would be a tough one to pick.
That's why Matty gets the big bucks. Round 3 in the NBL now, Cody, thanks to TABtouch. Starts Thursday night, and a huge game for all the reasons we spoke about earlier at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. I imagine it will be sold out if it's not already. So a big crowd. Well, it's going to be fascinating, the reaction. If Adelaide win, if the crowd gets right behind their team, or if they get behind, if things start to get ugly, because that Adelaide crowd isn't always nice if they don't like what they're seeing. No. So the 36ers against the Phoenix. TABtouch has the Sixers 157, the Phoenix $2.40. What do you think we see?
Yeah, look, I actually think the Phoenix turn it around this week, and I think they get it in Adelaide. And then it's kind of alarm bells for the 36ers. So look, this is a tough one though, because you know Adelaide are a different team in front of their home fans, like a lot of teams. But you know, Adelaide in Adelaide is always a different beast. So it's going to be interesting to see how Trez goes playing in front of the fans, and I'm sure it'll be an excited crowd. So look, like I said, I do think the Phoenix turn around this week and get this one done, but it's a bit of a flip of the coin for me on this one.
How many former Adelaide players are in the crowd watching? Or did they boycott?
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see if that's mentioned at all.
Yes. Okay, double headers now the rest of the way. Friday night starts in Cairns. The Taipans against the Jack Jumpers. $2.80 for the Taipans looks a little bit long for me, because they do get Jackson McCoy back, and Taron Armstrong is a chance to play. He hasn't been ruled out, at least. Jack Jumpers $1.44 on TABtouch. I think it's a bit closer than that.
Yeah, look, I think it's probably slightly closer than that. I do think Tassie get the job done, though. I just think they're too well drilled and too talented for Cairns. And even if we do see Taron Armstrong back, first game back, same with Jackson McCoy. You know, it's their first game back. I think there's always some growing pains when it's your first game. So look, I expect it to be a good one. Again, always tough in Cairns, but I expect Tassie to get that job done.
Next up, the Perth Wildcats, Melbourne United. The Wildcats 163, Melbourne 228. Again, I think that's closer than that suggests.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's quite a bit closer than that. I'll be at this one again. So looking forward to it, because it's another heavyweight bout.
Yes.
So really excited for it. But
and Melbourne usually play really well in Perth.
They do. Yeah. Yep. They're one of the few teams that have figured out how to play in Perth. So I do expect the Cats to get this done. I think after last week, with how they started, I expect them to come out really aggressive, especially defensively. So I think the Cats get it done, but I expect this to be another thriller.
I think Ben Henschel back will make a big difference as well.
Massive difference.
As that extra ball handler.
Because he was awesome in the first one. So, look, excited to see him play again.
2 more games on Saturday. First up, Illawarra Hawks and the Adelaide 36ers. Gee, if Adelaide lose on Thursday like you predict, this becomes even bigger for them, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But it's hard to go against the Hawks with how they're playing right now. Don't care who they come up against. So I would assume that the Hawks get this one.
And a 0-4 36ers.
Yeah, and it's really alarm bells.
Yes. Brisbane Bullets, back playing at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. Did you ever play there?
Yes. Yeah, I've played at the Entertainment Centre. So
did you prefer that than Nissan Arena?
Oh, it's 6-1, really. I mean, it's good. I'm glad it moved to the Entertainment Centre. I think that's really good. And hopefully
it's bigger, because they did well to outgrow Nissan Arena, but that only held 4,000. I think it's at least double, isn't it? The Entertainment Centre.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So no, it's really good, and hopefully the Brisbane faithful can come out in droves and get behind their team.
But it's a big ask, isn't it?
It is.
Against the Sydney Kings, they're $3.05. The Kings $1.38.
Yeah, and it's hard to go against the Kings in this one. And again, it's purely because of the outs of Brisbane.
Yep.
I think that the Kings will just have too much firepower in the long run and kind of run over them a little bit, unfortunately.
2 more games on Sunday. First up, Melbourne United and the Cairns Taipans. First home game for Melbourne, but gee, the Taipans had the wood on Melbourne for whatever reason last year, even though they were down near the bottom and Melbourne was up the top. And even though it's a home game for Melbourne, they're coming back from Perth on Friday night.
Yeah, so it's a quick turnaround, and it's tough coming from Perth and then going home and playing 2 days later, or a day and a half later.
Day,
So it's a tough one. But look, again, I think Melbourne is going to get it done just purely off talent. And again, this is probably, I think we're more likely to see Taron Armstrong in this game than we are on the Friday night. So hopefully Cairns can get their full roster together soon, because they'll be fun to watch when they do. But I do think Melbourne get that one at home.
Last game of the round is a beauty as well. The Tasmania JackJumpers hosting the Perth Wildcats, rematch from the playoff battle last year. And also both teams, I mean, basically the same. So Tasmania coming back from Cairns on Friday, Perth coming from Perth on Friday too. So that's basically the same sort of travel schedule. Should be a good game.
Should be. Excited for this one as well. And tough double for the Cats. Very tough double. But look, I think the Cats actually get it done. I think that they start to really separate themselves a little bit this round. And if they can get 2 big wins over a United and a Jack Jumpers teams, then I think they really start to separate themselves and kind of show the league that they mean business. So I think the Cats get this one done.
Oh, it's a statement, isn't it? If you beat the 2 grand finalists from last season.
Massive. So
we've also got the New Zealand Breakers now heading off to the US, Cody. They've started their NBL season really well. In a way, I feel like it's unfortunate that they lose that momentum to go on this trip. I feel like it's a decision probably not made by anyone involved in the actual playing side of the club. It's probably taken out above their heads. So they have 3 games against NBA opponents. Firstly, this Saturday against the Utah Jazz, then next Tuesday against the Philadelphia 76ers, and then the following Friday against the OKC Thunder. What are your thoughts on them doing this?
Yeah, it's NBL, NBA tour stuff is always interesting. I think it's awesome. Like, I really think it's great that they can go over and play against NBA teams and play in NBA arenas and that kind of a thing. But it's just the timing of it just really sucks.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like you said, they're 2-0, all the momentum in the world right now, and then they're away for for a couple of rounds and then have to come back and make it up.
Yep.
And they have signed Taco Paul for for the 3 games, and be interesting to see if they bring him back with them. So
they might just leave Freddie Gillespie where he is.
Oh, I mean, who knows, right? So no, look, I always look forward to watching these games and seeing how they compete. Obviously, we never see the full strength NBA teams. It's usually training camp guys and that kind of a thing that play. And
it's basically their first preseason hit-outs, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So look, I love it, but the timing of it always sucks.
It sucks because it hurts the Breakers' NBL season potentially, and it doesn't hurt anyone else's season. So it's not fair from that point of view. So I want to run something by you. I think it's unfair, but if we want this to continue, if we want to promote the NBL, what if we have every team involved in playing an NBA team? So we get rid of the blitz, so we can still but I still think we want to start the season when we start it.
Yeah.
So what if we have everyone come to Perth for Hoops Fest? So we start the season that way.
Yep.
And then every team takes a break before the start of their NBL season. All 10 clubs go to the US to play 1, 2, whatever it is, NBA preseason games. Yep. So sort of like our own summer league, but that can replace the blitz. So instead of having a blitz, every team goes and plays an NBA preseason game. That way, every team is equally affected by it. No one has to take a break from the NBL season because the whole NBL season takes a break for that week or 2, and then after that, everyone comes back and we start the season at the same time. What do you think?
Yeah, don't hate it. Like it. I do like it. No, I think the only tough thing would be is getting NBA teams to put teams together for that kind of a thing, and the timing of it all. You know, like I said, just the timing of it really sucks because this is about as early as you get NBA teams together.
Yeah, but we could just be taking a break from our NBL season now, and everyone could be there.
Yep. Yeah, look, if that was something that was actually proposed and something that they had thought about, I'd 100% back it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great thing, and it would really, really invest into the NBL, NBA kind of a allegiance that they've got going on, and kind of, I think it'd be good for all teams. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I'm sure you'd find it hard to find too many players that wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that'd be really good actually.
And would anyone miss the Blitz? I didn't think so. Because I don't think you could do it all. You couldn't have everyone go to the Blitz, everyone go to Hoops Fest, and then everyone go there. No. But if you take out the Blitz, then maybe.
For it. Yeah, and you're right. I don't think anyone would miss it, to be honest with you.
And that way everyone's on the same page. Yeah. So no one is disadvantaged by doing this. So
love it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm not sure if anyone will listen, but it's my idea anyway. Last thing out of the round, Cody. As soon as I heard Craig Sword from the Jack Jumpers being called chicken in a timeout from Scott Roth, I was fascinated why he was called chicken. I couldn't figure it out. I thought I must have just been silly. It must have been something obvious that I didn't know. You weren't aware of it either. No. So I was having a chat with Scott Roth after the game on Saturday. There was no one else part of the press conference, so I thought it was a nice time to ask Scott to help me get to the bottom of how he became known as Chicken.
Yep.
Let him explain it.
Yep.
And then I'll get your thoughts.
Am I just totally out of touch, or am I missing something where his chicken nickname comes from?
Well, he can tell you that story at some point, but basically when he was born, he was so small, his mom actually put him in a box. He was a premature baby. And they ended up putting him kind of in a box when they took him home. And his mom said he looked like a chicken. And at that point, it stayed with him till today. And he has a little bit better story than that, but that's kind of how it transpired. But he was a premature baby and super tiny. And from that point on, his mother was calling him chicken all the time, and it just went through his family. And he's actually... quite good about calling him chicken. He's actually, he probably responds to chicken more than he does Craig. So one of the, I think, probably all-time classic nicknames that you can find.
I must admit, I would have never guessed that, so I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have guessed that. You could have given me 100 different guesses and I would have never guessed that. How surprised were you when you found out the real story?
Yeah, look, I mean, I figured it was something from, his childhood or something along those lines, but not from the day he was born. So, no, look, it's a cool little story, cool little nickname, and be good to hear his version of it as well.
Once he's sitting there next to Scott in his next press conference, I'll make sure I ask him. But thank you to Scott for clearing that up. And I feel like it was a tough week for Scott. He was criticised, I think, a little bit unfairly for the way he acted in Perth. So nice to see him smiling again.
I know, it's good.
Yes.
It's always good to see him up and about and jovial and happy.
All right, Cody, that's been a lot for us to cover once again. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to TABtouch for making it happen. We will have plenty of exclusives and different bets that you can check out at the TABtouch app or tabtouch.com.au. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll leave it there and leave you with the final word, Cody.
Yeah, exciting for another big round of NBL action. Lots going on, and it's going to be interesting to see some of these undefeated teams, or defeated teams, apologise, and see how they go and how they stack up against some big games.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball's even bounced? You might have the touch. When the weather's wet, can you feel who'll triumph? You've got the power. Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? Then you too might be harnessing the power of the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.